A daily look at sports from our resident historian. Your sports break during your lunch break. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. Here's Charles Hanagriff.
And we welcome you into the Thursday edition of Hannytime 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. I'm Charles Hanagriff. Casey Gaines in with us today for the ailing Mario Jerez. Get well soon, Mario. He'll be back. And Jacob Beck running the video board with us this afternoon. Glad that you are with us. In the second segment today, we're going to talk with former LSU pitcher Lloyd Peever. It was hard to believe this because we're the same age, but 31 years ago, Lloyd Peever put up a perfect season for LSU. He only pitched for LSU 1 year, but that year, Peever was 14-0. So when people have asked me about what's the greatest one-year pitching performance in LSU history, because that's what Paul Skeens is embarking on, the first name I think of in a one-year situation is that 1992 season for Lloyd Peever. He's going to join us with some thoughts. Still lives here in Baton Rouge and attends lots of baseball games, so he's seen Peever he has seen Skeens pitch a number of times. Bottom of the hour, Shamid Dua from Boot Crew Media. We'll talk about what the Pelicans' outlook may be now that we know they have the number 14 pick in the draft. PGA Championship going on at Oak Hill. The first round underway. The leaders at 3 under par still on the golf course, Kazuki Higa, and Salith Talaga. Okay. Be honest, never heard either one of those guys. Both of them are 3 under par, though. Ryan Fox, who would have made this a lot easier transition, is in second place. If he'd have just been first place, I said Ryan Fox is in first place, and I could have moved on. Big names up near the top of the leaderboard. It's a very rough course at Oak Hill. Scotty Scheffler is 1 under. Justin Thomas is 1 under. Victor Hovland is 1 under, and Colin Morikawa was 1 under until about 15 seconds ago, and now he is back to even par, along with Brooks Koepka, Jordan Spieth, Cameron Smith, all of them at even par, and everybody just about making the turn after the front 9 for Jordan Spieth. This is yet another opportunity for him to complete the career Grand Slam. And he has won the other 3 majors. He is coming off an injury that cost him last week, but he is trying to complete the career Grand Slam, be only the 7th guy to do that. Today is also the opening of the final weekend of the regular season in the Southeastern Conference. So for baseball enthusiasts, we're getting into that real crunch time. So what's on the line for these teams? First of all, if you're not at all over the moon about LSU's pitching, and after the last couple of weeks, I can understand why. Some of the problems have been ongoing all year. I was looking at the starting pitching matchups in the Southeastern Conference in the 7 series this weekend. The only series in which all 3 starters have been announced for both teams is LSU and Georgia. Everybody else has got at least 1, and a lot of them 2, TBAs. This should give you an idea that LSU's not the only team. We did a podcast on this. It dropped a little while ago about the lack of pitching, not just here, but throughout the Southeastern Conference, throughout the country. Only 29 of a possible 42 starters have been announced in the league. So roughly a third of the pitching matchups for the weekend, the announced starters, the coaches themselves don't even know. Arkansas and Vanderbilt. This is the premier series in the league this weekend. Only 3 of the 6 possible starting pitchers have been announced. Vanderbilt's going with Patrick Riley tonight. His ERA is about 6.5. Vandy's pretty good. Arkansas's leading the league. These could very easily be, if the tournament was announced today, these teams would both probably be top 8 national seeds. They are playing right now for the Southeastern Conference Championship. Arkansas is in first place right now. Vanderbilt is 2 games back, but hey, you sweep them. Get a little help from Kentucky against Florida. Vanderbilt could win the league. Vanderbilt could win the Eastern Division. Vanderbilt could be a top 8 national seed very, very easily. I don't even have to do anything special to do it. Just don't get swept this weekend. Go out and win one game at the SEC tournament, and you're probably fine. And that team, their 3 starters, Patrick Riley, 6.43 ERA, Devin Futrell, ERA 2.93, and TBA. About what most of the rest of the league is doing. Now, in their defense, Carter Holton has been out with an injury, and he would have been their number 1 guy. But, hey, look, if LSU had all of their injured guys, things would look a lot different too, right? Next best series, and Arkansas is in control of their own destiny. And I suspect whether they win or lose this weekend, Arkansas has got a top 8 national seed pretty much locked up. The next best series is Tennessee and South Carolina. Tennessee riding this late season surge, trying to get themselves in position to host. Their RPI, though, is outside the top 20, so they got to hustle a little bit. South Carolina, who 3 weeks ago looked like the best team in the country, has lost the left side of their infield, multiple starting pitchers, and so they're in a bind. They've got Eli Jones going tonight, and then 2 TBAs. They're a top 8 RPI right now. They don't know who's pitching. Tennessee's going to run Andrew Lindsey out there, who has been fantastic, and Chase Dolander, who hasn't had a great year, but is still looked at as a top 5 pick. And this is what's considered good in the league right now. Auburn and Missouri are playing this weekend. For Auburn and Missouri, for Missouri, this is trying to make sure that you stay in the SEC tournament. They'd have to collapse not to get there, but it's about getting in the tournament for them. And for Auburn, I don't think that Auburn is going to host, but their RPI is 20. So if they got on a little bit of a roll, give them at least an outside chance. For LSU and for Florida and Kentucky, what's on the line? Florida, the SEC Eastern Division title, potentially the conference title outright. They're 1 game behind Arkansas. They are, I would say right now, a lock as a top 8 national seed, could win the conference. But they're going to Kentucky, where it's been, an up and down season, but it's a really talented team. Kentucky is sitting on a number 1 RPI in the country. How they're ahead of Wake Forest is beyond me, but they are. And Kentucky, though, is in 4th place in the SEC East. Are they going to be a top 8 national seed with the number 1 RPI? Right now, no. Could they play themselves in? Maybe. Are they a host site right now? Yes, I think they are. Could they play themselves out of that? Get swept by Florida this weekend and go 15-15? They may not host. That's what's on the line in that series. Texas A&M and Mississippi State. For Mississippi State, as bluntly as I can put it, Lamonis' job is probably on the line this weekend. And I don't know if you've made up your mind, first-year athletic director there, if you've made up your mind already on your baseball coach, who won a national championship 2 years ago but has been dreadful since. I don't know why one more series would make a difference one way or the other, but here we are. And for Texas A&M, right now I would say in the tournament, as long as they win 2 more between this series and the SEC tournament, they're 12-15. They can't get swept this weekend and go 12-18 and then, go one and done in Hoover and make it. But I think they're in pretty good shape. Their RPI is 40. So I think as long as they don't completely implode this weekend against Mississippi State, they're in good shape. Who's starting in this series? Nathan Detmer for A&M tonight. Colby Holcomb from Mississippi State. Detmer's ERA, this is the ace now, 6.32. Holcomb, 7.71. Who's pitching in the other 2 games? Don't know. For either team. 4 big TBAs with the rest of them. Ole Miss and Alabama, what's on the line there? For Ole Miss, nothing. They're playing out the string. The coach isn't going anywhere. They will play these 3 games, and then they will go quietly into the good night. For Alabama, with their 11 RPI but losing record in the Southeastern Conference right now, a series win would put them at least in the conversation if they could make a run in Hoover to talk about a host site. But they'd have to win probably 4 games just to get themselves in the conversation between this weekend and the SEC tournament. Alabama, by the way, is one of the teams without a coach now, but or without their coach to start the season, but who has all 3 of their starting pitchers in line for the weekend. In fact, if you add up the ERAs, average amount of known pitchers, Alabama's got the best for the weekend. You've got a couple of teams, and three of them, as a matter of fact, that are going to starters this weekend who have not pitched very much, including LSU's Javen Coleman. He's one of three starters this weekend that are in there that have pitched less than 20 innings for the season. So everybody is looking for pitching. LSU this weekend, I still think the top 8 seed is a lock. If they were to lose all 3 games this weekend, remember Georgia swept Arkansas when they were number 2 in the country, and they were to lose 2 straight games in Hoover, well then no, I think you'd say LSU should be in a bind at that point. But of the 5 games that they have left, Paul Skeens is going to pitch 2 of them. LSU's better than a $3 favorite tonight. That number only figures to go up. Georgia's Friday night start of the last 2 weeks is not among their 3 listed starters for this weekend. So that's what's going on. Go into a little bit more depth on the podcast if you want to hear more about pitching matchups this weekend. We got them not only in the SEC but throughout the country. All right, we'll keep you abreast of the PGA Championship, and when we come back, we'll talk with former LSU pitcher Lloyd Peever. This is Hannytime, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hannytime.
Big Mike's Sports Bar and Grill. I want to thank everybody who came out yesterday, went out for a late lunch at Big Mike's. The place was packed because a portion of the proceeds were going to Corporal Kelly, who was wounded in that gunfight last Thursday, a week ago, out in Denham Springs. Portion of those proceeds went, and it was a great turnout. Thank you to everybody who went there. Live music all weekend at Big Mike's. Happy hour, Monday through Friday from 3 until 7, and all day on Sunday starting at 11 a.m. So if you're going out to watch the baseball, the basketball, the golf, the NASCAR, over 40 TVs at Big Mike's. Still time for your graduation celebrations. If you still got some of that left, party rooms of multiple sizes, family-friendly at Big Mike's. Monday night, it's all-you-can-eat ball shrimp starting at 5 o'clock. Again, live music all weekend at Big Mike's. On Aspen Boulevard in Denham Springs, Big Mike's were kind of a big deal.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
On Friday's OTB, we'll recap Game 1. Did the Tigers manage to take advantage of Paul Skeens once again? Plus, look forward to Games 2 and 3 in Athens. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
This is Hannytime with Charles Hannegriff on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Okay, now Ryan Fox is on the lead, -2, along with Corey Connors. I can say that name too. Jake, help me out on the other guy whose name I butchered in the first segment.
That would be Sahith Thagala.
Of course.
And Kazuki Higa.
Of course. Well, Higa has dropped back a stroke. He's at 1 under. He had a double. So Connors, Fox, and help me out.
Thagala.
Right. All of them at -2 at number 12 and number 13. Joining us now is former LSU pitcher Lloyd Peever. Remember the 1992 team. And, you know, when people talk about Lloyd Peever, they talk about two things. They talk about the undefeated record, and they talk about what I still consider the scariest moment in the history of Alex Box Stadium that I was there to see, which was the shot that he took, and we already had a couple people ask about it. Lloyd, thanks for spending some time with us today. How are you?
I'm good, Charlie. Thank you for having me on.
I hate to bring up that scary moment, but since at least one of our listeners asked, and I had forgotten when I visited with you, man, that shot that you took was one of the scariest moments I've ever seen on a baseball field anywhere. I know you've told the story a bunch of times, but for those that haven't heard it, what is your memory of right after that happened?
Sure. So we were playing Ole Miss day game on Saturday, and left-handed hitter comes up by the name of Kerry Bridges. It's probably the third or fourth inning. We already had a decent lead on him, and threw a fastball on the outer half. And before I could react and throw my glove up to defend myself, the baseball purportedly timed at 93 miles an hour back at me, hit me on the right side just above my temple, and bounced straight up into the air toward third baseman Mike Neal, who got it for the putout. So a 1-5 fly ball line drive, and fell to the ground, wriggled around. I mean, I only recollect this because I've seen the video multiple times. It felt like somebody just swung a bat and hit me in the head. Probably stayed down, 5-6 minutes. Again, just watching I don't have that much of a recollection of it other than just being in pain, but took me off on a stretcher and stayed at Our Lady of the Lake overnight, and ended up missing the next 2 weeks of that season versus Georgia and Arkansas, and then came back 3 weeks later against Auburn. And I don't know if I gave up a run in that game. I think I went 8 innings, and everything was back to normal.
It was, and obviously everybody was relieved when we got the news, but I can remember the hush that just came over the entire stadium after that play. All right, let's move on to something a lot more positive. The 1992 season, you came in here, and we're trying to get a comparison to what Paul Skeens faced coming in here and what he has done. You came into a team that had just won the national championship. The expectations were huge. There were a lot of big bats on that team. You came in and didn't lose a game the entire season. So if you remember what you thought about coming in to pitch here with all of the expectations and how you were able to channel that into your pitching.
So if you recall, the top two pitchers from that 91 team, Paul Byrd and Chad Auger, had both been drafted by the Cleveland Indians, I think, either second or third round or third and fourth round. And so the top two spots were open, similarly to what Paul Skeens is walked into, where the number one spot is there for the taking. And I didn't know when I came in that I would be that guy. I had success at Seminole Junior College in Oklahoma for 2 years prior to coming to LSU, but I didn't know anybody on the team. Felt like a freshman walking in as a junior just because I didn't know the system. I didn't know the players, never played in the Southeastern Conference. And it's a significant learning curve coming in. Paul Skeens, very tenured at the Division I level coming in. I had not been that guy and didn't know, can I make the step up from the junior college ranks to Division I Southeastern Conference baseball?
As the season went along, the staff became more and more dependent on you to get deep into games. You led the team in innings pitched. And right now, I don't know what is going on in Paul Skeens' head, but he certainly watched the bullpen pitch. He knows what's at stake here. I can't imagine the pressure in his head, and he's handled it beautifully. But it's like, man, if I don't pitch well, we're going to be in real, real trouble here. That's a lot to take out to the mound with you.
I don't think that thought crosses his mind. Every time he walks out, he expects to win. He expects to give his best performance, but if they score one run, he's got the better chance at winning that game. They just have to score a run. So I can remember playing against the University of Florida at Florida, and that was a game that I got a no decision. Probably the toughest crowd. They had actually had the spring game at the football field right next door to the baseball field right before the baseball game. So the fans, it was the biggest crowd I'm sure they had at the baseball field the entire year, and they were rowdy. I'm sure had been imbibing prior to the baseball game.
No, not a chance.
And Russ Johnson in the first inning, so the top of the first inning, I think hit a home run. We go up 1-0, and I'm confident we're going to win that game. Not because, hey, we're going to score 15, but, I'm confident in my abilities. If I can perform like I prepared and like I had, you just have that mindset as that number one guy that you're going to go out and perform your best and give us the best chance to win. I think I was taken out in the 8th inning, got a no decision, and we ended up losing that game on a ball in the sun to Chris Mook in left field. But I think Paul Skeens has that mindset, especially with what he's been able to put up so far this year. You score a run for me, and we're going to win.
You've been out to see him a number of times, including that masterpiece last week against State. So what impresses you about it? I mean, he throws hard, Lloyd, but a lot of people throw hard. This guy's been almost untouchable this year. What do you see as a former pitcher that impresses you?
So the number one thing is he can pitch. It's not just the velocity. He knows how to throw a first pitch strike. And we've seen the guys that are struggling are not able to do that consistently. So he gets ahead of hitters, whether that's with a first pitch slider, which he can do, or with a 98, 99 mile an hour fastball. So he gets the first pitch strike, even though it might not paint the black, but he gets ahead. After he gets ahead, the hitter's at a significant disadvantage. They foul a ball off. So then he's 0-2 or he's 1-2, and then he can pick and choose. Even more impressive is how his slider has gotten better from week to week. So that's kind of his out pitch now, where early in the year it seemed like he was throwing more changeups, which is really good. But, his changeup is still 90 miles an hour. That slider has enough mile per hour differential that it keeps hitters off balance, and he knows when to bury it in the dirt. He knows when to throw it outside. He's not getting hurt with his number 2 pitch, which has led to, the numbers that we're seeing so far with strikeouts and walks. I mean, even I look at his stats. So I've looked at his stats before we spoke, and he's got 152 Ks, which lends itself to his velocity and his number 2 pitch, but only 14 walks. In the season that I pitched with 104 innings, I had 20 walks, and everybody thinks, oh my gosh, that goes down in history. I look back at Nola's numbers when he was here in 14, and he had 27 walks that season and impeccable control. So besides just the lightning stuff that's going to make him the first pitcher taken in the draft, he's got unbelievable control where if he can get ahead of a hitter, they're just trying to put something in play. He's not wasting pitches.
Lloyd Peever is our guest, former LSU pitcher. Back in 1992 was 14-0. Lloyd, we just went through a deal where we were looking at the starting pitchers for this weekend in the Southeastern Conference, where even the best teams are still looking for a ton of pitching help. So there has led to some conversation about, is the ball hot? Okay, yeah, probably it is a little bit. How much more impressive is it that Skeens is doing this in an offensive-generated season like this? And if it was you, how would you approach it differently, if at all, knowing that the ball's flying?
I was played in the early 90s. I don't know if the ball was hot or not. I don't think when I played, I looked at the overall league statistics. There was no social media. You knew who the team was that had the best record and the pitcher was that, had the best numbers, but you didn't follow it like you do today. I don't know that he's, I'm sure the players know what the competitive nature looks like. Whether it's hot or not, you're all still throwing the same baseball. But because he can locate, and I read an article, Charlie, interesting, in the Daily Advertiser from Lafayette that was, I think, submitted on the 10th of this month. And if you think about Paul Skeens' mindset, I don't know that, and I really didn't even think about it. He's not hitting this year. So when you only focused on one position, I think that's part of the reason he's become a better pitcher. But I didn't realize the guy was a catcher. He's a 6'6", 245-pound catcher, as well as the first pitcher who's going to be taken in the draft. So because he's been able to focus solely on this position, his ability has become even, his ability to succeed has become even better. I think mentally, with all the resources that LSU has, which is a significant advantage over other SEC schools and, other schools as we get to regional and super regional time, just the TrackMan and the video and what they're able to do and what Paul is able to do, from what I've heard from the coaching staff, he's a student of the game. So he's able to look at those videos and look back and improve and take notes. And he's got a feel for pitches to be able to locate and not walk the play, the batters, obviously with only 14 walks in 80 innings, to be able to locate and improve, and being a student of the game. I mean, I don't know that, he gives up more than a couple of runs per game the rest of the year, just because he's that dominant with velocity and location. So, I look at similar to when I was there. I don't know that he loses a game unless, we run into another South Carolina situation with a rain shortened game where he can't come back out.
Last thing, Lloyd, when I looked up, I wanted to refresh my memory on all of the stats from that 92 team. I would have lost a bet here. You're gonna have to remind me when Armando Rios pitched, because I don't remember that at all. Look down there, and Rios pitched in 8 games in 92. And if somebody comes and said, was Armando Rios a hitter or a pitcher? I said, well, no, he was a hitter, of course. I don't remember him pitching, but he pitched a little bit that year, and decent, good numbers too. Remind me of when Armando Rios pitched.
I don't think he ever pitched. I know, you've got the stats in front of you. Don't know that he ever started a game, but
he did not. He did not.
Yeah, Mike Sorotka was injured that year, so we didn't have that many lefties out of the bullpen. And I think in situational work to face lefties, Armando had a really good arm. He was kind of a 3/4 guy from the mound, and he had good stuff, and he was probably doing backflips up to the mound when he did get the chance to play. I don't know if you remember Armando.
Oh yeah, that I remember for sure. able
to do backflips out to center field, but he had good stuff. Much like another pitcher, or not pitcher. Maybe you need to call Adrian Antonini.
Now that I remember. I remember when Antonini closed. Yeah,
exactly, and ask him. Much like Skeens, hey, you're a catcher. What makes you a good pitcher? What can you transfer? Because catchers, it's a different mindset as a catcher. You're seeing every pitch and analyzing and reading hitters, and there's no doubt Skeens has that advantage as well, able to set up hitters, thinking of it from a catcher's mindset.
Lloyd, you've been a great guest. Not only have you given me great perspective, you've given me an idea to go get a different guest in another perspective. Lloyd, we appreciate the time. Thank you so much, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, Charlie. Go Tigers.
Lloyd Peever, former LSU great. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk some basketball when we return with Shamit Dua from Boot Crew Media. This is Hannytime, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hannytime.
Infinity of Baton Rouge. Right now, your chance to get a quote on your vehicle in less than 15 minutes. They'll buy your vehicle for cash at that time, or you can trade in for another model, or there's no pressure to buy. You can just get the information, and that will be the end of it. But if you get into the certified pre-owned program, as we did once again just a few months ago, benefits are fantastic. First of all, large inventory. They're going to be able to match you to make, model, and of course, the price is the most important thing for most of these transactions. It's a transparency in pricing. But you're going to get 1 year of prepaid maintenance on the vehicle. You're going to get a courtesy vehicle when you bring your vehicle in to be serviced, and the roadside assistance is invaluable peace of mind that you will have on that vehicle. Again, time and time again, we've gone back for the friendly service and the family atmosphere that they always exude over at Acura and Infinity of Baton Rouge. Check them out right now. Airline Highway, Acura and Infinity of Baton Rouge.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Hey, it's Hunt. Join me for a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We'll get you ready for LSU in Georgia with Anthony Dasher over in Athens. Hunt Palmer Show, 1 to 3 weekdays, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hannytime with Charles Hannegriff on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Remember, you can always get the show on demand, 1045ESPN.com. Joining us now from Boot Crew Media, Schmidt Dua, covering the New Orleans Pelicans. Schmidt, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon. I'm doing well.
All right. The lottery has come and gone. The Pels stayed where the likelihood was that they would at number 14. So with a couple of days to digest this, give me your odds. Keep the pick or trade the pick. Which way you leaning?
Assessing where the team is at and trying to forecast what they're going to do with perhaps the center position and areas of need. I feel like what's most likely to happen is JV is on the move and they're going to attach the pick in addition to JV and try to upgrade at that center position. Maybe they do that and they get a pick back in the later part of the first round. For example, you trade for Miles Turner out of Indiana. They have 26 and 29, I believe, in the first round, and maybe one of those picks is coming back. But I would wager they trade the pick. It helps them upgrade. It gets them out of a little bit of a salary obligation, so they're not brushing up against the tax. But maybe someone they really like is at 14 and they keep it. But I say they trade it.
What is Jonas's trade value right now, given he's a very solid offensive player, liability defensively? Everybody's seen it. We know what he's making. What is his trade value right now?
I say it's neutral. I don't think any contending team is really hungering after him for specifically the reasons you mentioned. And I think he's a pretty valuable vet to younger teams and teams just looking for a steady offensive presence and teams looking for help on the glass. And I think one of the more attractive features in trading Jonas Valanciunas is that he's going to be on an expiring contract. So there is no long-term salary obligation for any team taking him on. And if you're attaching a first-round pick to that, it's a pretty, I would say it's not like the world's best asset or anything, but it's I would say it has positive value.
Pelicans universe has been lusting after Miles Turner for a long time now. Any discussion you get into about Pelicans roster management, his name almost always comes up. So what's Indiana's motivation to move him at this point? Is it high? Would they rather not? You're going to have to twist an arm here. Why do they want to move him, I guess?
Honestly, it's difficult to predict what they want to do. What we do know is Indiana has tried to move him for the last 4 years since essentially Zion was drafted. The Pelicans had the number 4 pick at that time, which they obviously ended up trading. But they had the number 4 pick in the same draft, and there was rumors of talks between the Pacers and the Pelicans, and they've come up every year since. And Miles Turner is a name that's been on the market for 4 years. They finally ended up renegotiating his deal, giving him some more money and an extension this past trade deadline. And so I don't think, that's someone that they're truly, truly attached to. They have a young centerpiece in Tyrese Halliburton. Benedict Mathurin is obviously an up-and-coming player who had a tremendous year for a rookie. They have a chance to add another young player through the draft. I think it's not unlikely that they continue to take this slow build and lean into the younger players.
Is Valanciunas in 14 enough to get him out of there, or do you have to attach something else?
That is the question. I would be hesitant to attach much more. If they want Najee Marshall as part of it, sure. If they want Kyra Lewis as part of it, sure. But in terms of pick assets or better players beyond 14, I would not want to attach much more. Now, if you were telling me that the Pelicans are not putting 14 on the table, they're putting maybe next year's pick on the table, I would be more amenable to adding a little more. Or if you told me hey, it's JV and it's Herb Jones, that's it, you're not getting anything. I think that's a fair trade. I don't think Pelicans fans would be happy about it, but to get a good player, you got to give up a good player. I think that's just how the NBA works.
And if you're trading future picks, are you trading your picks? Are you trading Laker pick? You're trading Milwaukee pick? Given where those teams are, if you're going to attach some future picks, Shamit, you can tell me which ones you think are the most valuable given this second half of the season Laker resurgence. Is there a bigger deal out there that would include some of these unprotected picks?
Yeah, I think, when you start getting in conversations for better players, you're going to have to put more on the table, and those picks would certainly come up in those conversations. And I think right now the league is valuing those Milwaukee picks higher than just about anything because they're further out. Giannis is only 2 years away from being able to walk. If he wanted, Drew Holiday is aging, Chris Middleton, they have a decision coming up on his contract, and so the future is uncertain. Obviously, they fired Coach Budenholzer, and we don't know who they're going to hire and what that's going to look like. So the future is very much uncertain, and so the uncertainty is driving up the value of the future Milwaukee picks and the swap they have. So I think those are ones that Pelicans are going to try to hold on to unless it's a truly needle-moving player, impactful player coming back. And then the one thing I'll say about the Lakers pick is the Pelicans own the Lakers pick outright next year, but if the Lakers continue this kind of a trajectory, they have the option to re-roll it, pushing it back to the following year, 2025. They can push it back, and see, hey, maybe we get another crack at this. So I would personally want to move the Pelicans pick for next year. The goal should be, hey, this season you're not going to end up in the lottery. I mean, I think you could protect it top four. So that would be your lotto, your jump up protections. But I would move the Pelicans pick. The next year's draft isn't projected to be all that great either. Obviously, you never know about these things until they happen in several years afterwards. But the Pelicans pick is the one I'd be looking to move.
LeBron will eventually get old, and Davis will eventually get hurt, right? I mean, it's
the bet.
It's got to happen at some point. I mean, everybody gets old. Let's talk about if the Pelicans do keep the pick. Early thoughts on bullpen of guys that could fit at that 14th pick. Looking for shooting, obviously, or if you can find a big man, go right ahead. But what are your thoughts about 14 right now?
Yeah, I think the Pelicans are certainly going to have choices for guys or prospects who are going to end up as productive NBA players. Obviously, it's impossible to predict who those guys are going to be. And I think the Pelicans front office in general has done a good job of identifying players who not only fit their system in terms of X's and O's, but, as humans and David Griffin always values the good human. So I think at 14, I prefer Leonard Miller. He played in the G League Ignite. He is a versatile big man, very funky offensive player. He averaged, I believe, like 16 or 17 and 10 rebounds as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old in the G League playing against grown men at a really high efficiency. He's a good passer. He kind of gives you young Lamar Odom vibes. Obviously, it's difficult to compare anyone to a Hall of Fame guy, but that's the kind of skill set if I had to describe him in a nutshell. So Leonard Miller is certainly at the top of my list at 14. As far as shooters go, there's Jet Howard out of Michigan, another Michigan prospect, Kobe Bufkin. He is a very talented all-around guard, just can pretty much no holes in his game, and who's rising up the boards quite quickly right now is Brandon Bajemski. And he is out of Santa Clara, and that guy can really shoot the ball, really rebound, and really pass it. So certainly options there for the Pelicans.
All right, before we let you go, conference finals, both one game in. Denver and Miami, both one game up. Somewhere in the league offices, they're weeping. They want Celtics and Lakers, I'm sure. But, boy, what a third quarter for Jimmy Butler and the Heat last night. So who do you like in these two series as they move into game two?
I think the Nuggets are going to pull it out in the West. I do think they're the deeper and better team, and Jokic is just playing on a different level than just about anybody right now, except for maybe Jimmy Butler, who has been absolutely phenomenal these playoffs. And even though the Heat took game one, I still think I take the Celtics here. I think they're the more talented team. I think they figure it out, but I don't think it's going to be an easy series, and I do think it will go to 7. And I think that having home court advantage at the Garden is going to come through.
Any thoughts on the coaching carousel? If you want to coach with a ring, you got multiple choices out there right now. There's some high profile, win now situations for available coaches, but the guys that are in those situations, they just fired coaches with rings like Milwaukee and Philadelphia. Any thoughts on how this all shakes out?
I think it's a little bit ridiculous, to be honest. I saw a stat that was like, three of the last 4 coaches who've been to the finals, are now without a job, and like 4 of the 5 coaches with the winningest records of the last like 3 years are now without a job, and like that's kind of ridiculous because at the end of the day, everyone's trying to win, and it's very difficult to do so. So, like, is the margin of error really that slim at the top? And I think at some point the executives got to look at the jobs they've done building those teams. I'm looking at the Sixers. I understand Doc was probably gone anyway because Daryl Morey didn't hire him, and GMs always want to bring their own guy in, and it sounds like James Harden had to do something to do with that. But James Harden didn't show up for Game 7. Joel Embiid didn't show up for Game 7. I'm not sure what Doc Rivers could have done to have changed that situation. And so, look, I think at some point teams just get tired of one guy and they try to look in a different direction. But I think all those guys are great coaches, and many of them are probably going to sit on the sideline and wait for the right job to open up if they're not called about all of these other job openings. So it may just be a lot of top end teams swapping top end coaches and thinking that they know better.
When they write the epitaph for Daryl Morey, it's going to be he trusted James Harden too much. That's just me. Okay, so you'll have to deal with that. Shamit, we always appreciate the time. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us today. We'll talk to you closer to the draft.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Shamit Dua from Boot Crew Media. We'll take a break, take some of your questions, and buy you for chat when we return. Hannytime, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hannytime. Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR, presented by the Aesthetic Medicine and Anti-Aging Clinics of Louisiana. Game 1, LSU, Georgia. We'll preview it. Kendall Rogers from D1 Baseball. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hannytime with Charles Hannegriff on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
PGA Championship at Oak Hill. Ryan Fox on top of the leaderboard. I got it. 3 under through 15. Corey Connors and Victor Hovland, also names I know. One shot back at 2 under. Baseball today is an early start for LSU in Georgia, 5 o'clock. That's SEC Network Plus, and of course on Eagle 98.1. Ask Hanny, should Travinsky get more at-bats? Yes, he's got to be in the lineup right now. He's swinging too hot a bat not to. Now, you're going to put him behind the plate. You're going to DH him. They tried him at first the other night. There was one error there. Yes, Travinsky's bat's got to be in the lineup right now. Where he goes in to hit is a little bit more difficult of a question right now, if you ask me. Ask Hanny, does LSU have does he have to post a starting pitcher in advance? Why not out of the blue start Skeens on Saturday? You have to put a lineup in. Most of the time, every game I ever did, we never got inside of an hour to first pitch that the starting pitcher wasn't announced. Now, you don't have to announce it on Thursday. The league would like you to do that, but you don't have to. You can go TBA. Usually, we would get lineups somewhere between an hour and an hour and a half inside of first pitch. So if they don't pitch Skeens on Friday, I'm pretty sure they know he's going to go on Saturday. My thing is, if you got Skeens, you run him out there and you let everybody else adjust. I'm not trying to play chess with you to get him up against your top guy. I'm going out. I'm going to run my guy out there. I'm going to win game 1, and we'll take it. We'll take it from there. Ask Hanny, LSU and who to parlay tonight. Florida's playing really good baseball right now. You're going to get a reasonable number at Kentucky. I don't have it in front of me, but Florida might not be a bad pick. Arkansas, Vanderbilt is really struggling to score runs. They've scored 11 runs in their last 6 conference games. Arkansas is throwing their 1 tonight. So Arkansas and Florida, not very creative. That's 2 top teams in the league, but that's what I would go with. Ask Candy, do you remember when they roll out the Saturday morning cartoons in September? Are you kidding me? Yes. Wouldn't like it when you got just a whole network of nothing but cartoons. Of course I remember that. Big Super Friends guy. That was my favorite. Thanks to everybody for participating. We will see you tomorrow. Stay tuned for Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.